I'm here with a very dejected Turkish. Well, we're all as Arsenal fans pretty dejected today. Arsenal 2, Aston Villa 2. If I give you a stat, Turkish, before I ask you to speak, the last time we were 2-0 up and didn't go on to win the game at home was in October 2019. Just goes to show how disappointing a day this was for Arsenal.
Yeah, I didn't need that stat for me to feel disappointed about today, Carl. It's a reoccurring theme as well. I think last season we went 1-0 up 18 times, we won all of those games, or 1-0 up at half-time, leading games at half-time, we won all of those games. It's been different this season. I think that makes it 12 games up at half-time, we've won 7 of those and drawn 5. I think that's what that makes it. And then you consider the points gap to Liverpool at the top, and, you know, that goes a long way in telling the story. But really, the damage was done in the transfer window in the summer, and maybe that's why people feel like my fan cam last week was an overreaction, because they're only coming to terms with the summer window now, whereas I came to terms with that the moment we signed Sterling. So this month was all about me coming to terms with January and what we were being told, internal solutions and all of that nonsense, right? But the tone has changed from Mikel in the last few days. The last few days has been very forthcoming with the idea that a forward needs to come in. Very different tone, which I've liked. You couple it up with the Tottenham win. Okay, nice. Liverpool drop points. Okay, a door closes with the FA Cup. A door slightly closes with the Carabao Cup. The door slightly opens with the league, right? We took those 2 points gained. Yeah, we've just lost out on them now. And at the end of the day, you know, all the forthcoming quotes about a forward now, you know, it just feels like at the end of the season, even if we was to get one over the line now and he was to give us a push, it still might be too little too late. You know, we had to move quick in this window, in my opinion, considering the magnitude of the games we had, considering we were not in the best of positions in the league. And then people will throw out the league table from last year and say we're exactly in the same position, and then paint me out to be a madman for being Bex last week. But last year, wasn't it the first 19 games that lost us the league? It was the first 19 games, because the last 19 games we lost 1 game and I think drawn 1 at the Etihad. That didn't lose us the league. The league was essentially lost the first half of the season, and that might be unfair considering the final points tally, but the league is what it is. And when you're dealing with Man City, you got to do what you got to do. This year we're not. This year we're dealing with Liverpool, who have world-class players, but you've seen that they're far from the Man City we've had to both deal with over the last 5, 6, 7 years, right? But as much as I'm confident Liverpool will slip up again, I'm also confident we are going to slip up again, regardless of a new player coming in now, because I feel like we're 1, 2, maybe 3 players short at this moment in time. And then this week I've also said that we're 1, 2 players away from a great 11. We are. So people might use that as an overreaction to calling me mad for last week's fan cam, but that's what's most frustrating, that yet again we're in a position where we're 1, 2 players away from potentially being a great 11, a great unit, 3, 4 players from being a great squad, and it looks like the handbrake's on again. It looks like they don't want to go into gear 5, gear 6, whatever car you're driving. And that's what's most frustrating. So yes, it's not 5 years ago when we had Mustafi. Yes, it's not Silvestre days and Scalacci days. I understand that. But I came up in the Sol Campbell, Tony Adams. Understand that. That's where I'm coming from. And that's 21 years deep now. Yeah? And it's also 6 years deep since Be Excited and 5 years into the process. At the end of the day, I think Mikel's a top manager. I do. But he hasn't been... The final piece is, it's a mix between he hasn't got it right and they're not quick enough to get it right now that they've realised it hasn't gone right. And that's the story of Arsenal when we're close to something in this Emirates era. Anytime we're close to something, it seems like one big fuck up in the market can really push us back 3, 4 seasons. Whereas every other club seem to, you know, they fuck transfers up. Everyone does. They move quick, and they get the job done that they need to get done. Over the last 5 years, Arteta's done, you know, amazing to get us back to a feeling of expectation. We expect. But this season was the year of a trophy. And listen, there's still a lot of the season to go. I said Liverpool will drop points. There's 2 weeks left of the window. Whatever I feel is not the reality. I feel like we've done too much damage in the league. But that's not the reality. The reality is still there. Liverpool will drop points. But we don't have the resources for me to stand here confidently and say, yeah, we're going to do this. And I don't think Mikel has either.
Okay, so if we look at today's performance, you know, you mentioned the striker and the lack of activity in the transfer window so far. And listen, I do get that. I do agree with you. However, if we take today in isolation, we're 2-0 up, seemingly coasting. We was all making the point on the watch along that this game at that moment was looking even more comfortable than the Tottenham game, and then we concede 2 goals in the space of 8 minutes. So some people will say that's not a striking issue, is it?
Which is potentially, I won't say a bigger problem, because defensively we're far better off than we are offensively. But what the stat I said at the beginning, in terms of 18 times we're leading at halftime last season, we see out all of them games. So there has been some impact defensively. Why? Because the layers in front of them have been unraveling. The first layer, the attack, it's not as scary for opposition as last year. So they're going to set up a bit different. They're going to be a bit hungrier. There's a bit more blood, to get your teeth into as an opposition. And in the midfield, in my opinion, Mourinho's all right, but we still lack some mobility. Where was Odegaard today? At the end of the day, nice flashes in the first half, but when push come to shove at the end, I see Lewis Skelly doing the most amount of work in midfield. I see Declan Rice, pulling something out of nothing. Odegaard's been poor for a little while now, and listen, Saka showed that he can win us games without Odegaard. Since Saka's been out, Odegaard hasn't shown the same, and we put these players on the same standing. I'm not going to make this about Odegaard, like I'm not going to make it about Havertz, another poor game, like I'm not going to make it about Martinelli. In my opinion, he done well for the finish, but there was 2 moments in the second half where one was a fast break and he's got his head down running away from everyone, and that fast break turns into reset, 11 men behind the ball. That was at 2-0. And then he had a volley that he should have done better with. Completely, he smashes it. Well, that might have been at 2-1. So Trossard's the only one in the attack that I look at and say he was very direct, beating his man. He got 2 nice assists, and credit to him. But we know the attack is a problem. They bring on John Duran with 10 minutes to go, and they bring on Leon Bailey with 5 minutes to go. Leon Bailey and John Duran start for Arsenal right now. Do you know that? Do you disagree with that?
No, I wouldn't necessarily.
So make that make sense to me. How does the 2 players they're bringing on in the final 10 minutes, Aston Villa, start for Arsenal right now? And people can say Saka's injured. That's why, yes, Saka's won. But Duran, and even the striker they started, would start for us. So,
but you know what? As much as I agree with you, I do come back to my original point that today wasn't really about the striking issue, if you ask me. Yes, we should have scored more goals, but I've got to say,
when you dominate,
it's 2-0 up, and you're like pretty much coasting, you allow the team to come back.
When you dominate most of the ball, right? When you dominate most of possession, yeah, you don't expect to look at the stats at the end of the game, and shots on target is so close. So yes, the attack is a big part of it. I know we were 2-0 up, and Aston Villa got back into it, and there's questions to be asked there, the midfield being a bit too open when you're 2 up, or what's Partey doing for Ollie Watkins? Some might say, why is Partey right back in the first place? You could argue, you could make various arguments. The fact of the matter is, we're 3 weeks into January, we haven't moved for anyone, we're not close to anyone, we're at the FA Cup. Carabao, listen, people have looked at the Bournemouth win against Newcastle at St James Park, and there's a glimmer in their eye. Okay, cool. I still think we can do something in that game, but at the same time, do you envision Newcastle losing by 3 goals 2 times at St James Park in a month? Their fans, I don't think, would let that happen. We know what they're like in that stadium, and the fortress they can make it. So, I'm sorry, Laurie, but after seeing Liverpool, right? Liverpool brought on Núñez, and he wins it for them, right? On top of that, they brought on Harvey Elliott. So they brought on Núñez around the 65-70 mark, off the top of my head. And they brought on Elliott with 10 minutes to go. Elliott was the architect of both the goals, and Núñez was the finisher of both the goals. So I don't need to talk about Duran and Bailey. I can also look at Liverpool, the ones we're up against, and see what they did when things weren't really going for them. They had something. And I don't think Núñez is not a great player. In fact, for 80 million or 70, he's a flop. But they're still managing to use. He's not a starter no more for them, right? And he's won them a game. Like he came off the bench last year at Newcastle and won them a game. And he's done it few and far between, but he's done it. Whereas we bring on Sterling. Joke thing. Imagine.
No, I hear you. In terms of the league...
One thing I want to say, this is important. The abuse that I see Havertz misses, and across the years, it's happened to other players too, and not just Arsenal related. I want to get this out there because my fan cam went all over the place last time and whatnot. That's not the intention. I'm angry, I'm emotional, right? The abuse... These people make it make sense. They're sick in the head. And if anyone feels influenced by anything I have to say to do that, you're a wrong'un. So I don't want to be associated to that. I don't want them to be associated to Arsenal Football Club. There's criticism and there's abuse. I need to get that in there because AFTV is the main Arsenal platform. And, like I said, the fan cam from last week went all over the gaff, and I have criticism of Havertz. And then when people see the abuse, they can link it up. If I had any part to play in that, I'm sorry. but it's a human problem. It's a world problem. It's a people problem. I'd slap a man that I see messaging anyone that I don't even know saying that sort of thing. Them man deserve to be slapped. I just want to get that out there because I have started talking about players and when
No, that's
like,
I like that. You know, you've taken responsibility for what you said, and at the same time aired out to people. That I mean, that was totally ridiculous. People, fans are going to have their opinions. That's what it's all about, and it's subjective. You saw certain things, you called them out. You weren't abusive, or anything. You was quite honest and forthright in your opinions, and that's fine. So I'm glad you said that. Thank you very much.